welcome to Gooner Ramble.
I'm just clearing my throat.
Yeah.
Start again.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to fucking start again. I'm going to carry on.
Come on.
This is the Gooner Ramble, an Arsenal Fan TV podcast. As you can see, we're full of the joys of the world. We're coming on the back of a chastening 3-0 defeat at the hands of Everton today. And on the podcast, we have Callum.
Hello.
Jasper.
Kill me.
And we've also got Amanda from Gooner Girls podcast again. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
I'm not going to ask you how you're doing.
Don't bother.
Yeah, I won't. All right. So, I'm going to start with you, Amanda. Give me your thoughts on today's game.
Sums up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. You know, I've said this about 4,500 times on our podcast, that if you go into a season with half a striker, you get what you deserve. His chickens have come home to roost. You know I'm not a Wenger in or a Wenger out. I'll praise him when it's due, and I'll criticise when it's necessary. But for some reason, this team, albeit the injuries have hurt us terribly, I'm not denying that, is appalling. And I tweeted actually quite early on that Leighton Baines can have the whole of the left side and do whatever he wants. Crosses in, passes Sanya, where's Cazorla? The list is endless. I mean, I could go on all night about it, but I'm sure Jasper and Callum want to have a say.
Yeah.
It was a must not lose game. I took a draw yesterday. For us to, you know, stay ahead of them, be the destiny of fourth in our own hands, and go into the semi on Saturday with a bit of confidence. Well, that's fucking shot now, isn't it? And I never ever swear. So we're all going to Wembley on Saturday. We all knew going to face Wigan on Saturday is going to be tough. We don't need the likes of any commentators telling us that it's going to be tough on Saturday. We know the capabilities of our club of fucking it up. Been there, seen it, done it millions of times. But one shining light was Ramsey. He must have thought, what the fuck he's come back to? He left us when we were great. He
Come back to West Brom, isn't he?
Yeah. He left us. I watched him. I was away. I was in the ground at West Ham when he was pulled off for injury. And we weren't too bad. We weren't brilliant that day, and I think the signs were on, the writing was on the wall come then, really, December. And since he's been gone, we are not good. So, my thoughts on today.
All right, you're just starting on your thoughts. Sorry.
No, I know. You know I go on. You'll have to stop me because I could just go on for about an hour. My thoughts really are just, I don't know really, I wasn't due to be on this podcast, so I haven't really prepared, thought about it.
And we have?
Minute. No, I know, but I'm on tomorrow night. We've got a couple of guests on ours tomorrow night, and I was thinking about how we're going to lift it. But I've just this second, in the last minute before I came on, watched Wenger's interview. He looks crestfallen, shocked. He actually left the interview pretty, what's that word?
Hastily.
That's the word.
Yeah.
I've actually not seen him look like that. I think he's a man under pressure. I think it all lays on Saturday. I honestly still think he's already signed, to be honest. But, you know, I don't get a CEO of a company coming out and saying, you've got all this money to spend, to tell the whole world you've got all this money to spend, Mr. Gazidis, and we don't go and spend it. And we spend it on a player who I love Mesut completely, think he's complete class, but it wasn't what we needed. What we needed was Ian Wright, Thierry Henry. That's what we needed. So I'll try and get a little bit more positive towards the end of the podcast, but at the moment I'm pretty down.
Callum?
Yeah, it was just fucking awful. The sad thing was that when it got to like 2-0, I kind of had this resignation about me because I've got so used to this now. And then I kind of snapped out of it and thought, why am I sitting here 2-0 down to us, you know, in a huge game, and I'm kind of just, oh, well, it's more of the same. And it angered me how often this happens to the point where you kind of almost expect it. And but I didn't expect it to be that bad today because, you know, after we got the result at City last week, I generally thought we'd turned a corner. I thought we'd, you know, put a lid on that awful run we had. I thought we'd come to Goodison with a bit of a bit of a lift. Ramsey was back in the squad. Everything seemed to be all right, and then we didn't show up. And I know Everton are a good team, and Martinez has got them playing some great football this season. But the way we went down, it's just ridiculous. And I think I just tweeted today. I said, "What has happened to this team?" Like I watched the highlights of the first half of the season. We beat Norwich 4-1, we beat Napoli, we beat Dortmund away from home, and we had this. Not only were we playing brilliant football, but we had a great defence. We looked solid. We were hard to beat. Whereas nowadays, a team, Everton are a good team, but they're not Man City or Liverpool when they're at their best. They're still some way off that. And all they had to do really was show up, play basic football, and not only would they have an easy path to goal, but all they had to do was, when we tried to attack, was put men behind the ball, and we had nothing. The amount of times that we'd see players, if Santi or Tommy Rosicky ever got a bit of space to run into, there'd be nothing. There'd be absolutely nothing on for us. And we've become this. We used to, at the beginning of the season, and often over the last few years, we have had this signature style under Wenger, which is free-flowing, beautiful football. And when it works well, it works amazingly. You think back to the Napoli game when we had Özil interchanging all over the place. All the attacking midfield was just moving everywhere, and they were a nightmare to mark. But the problem with that today is that we've got a group of players at the moment who don't seem to have any confidence, who don't really know what they're doing. So every time that Everton got the ball, and as Amanda said, Baines had that whole flank to themselves, and whoever was meant to be playing right midfield was usually on the left wing or up front. Giroud was coming out left. We just looked like we were completely lost. And I'm not, I'm genuinely pro Wenger. I'm not one to call for his head, but today was the more than ever, have I really had to question whether or not he is the man to take us forward. And at the moment, I think there are a lot of questions that need to be asked, because it's not just one or two problems. There's tons. There's so many things that have gone wrong recently, and you feel like an idiot for believing that we could actually do something this season. And we do have the FA Cup and that to look forward to. But either way we're playing, if Wigan knocked us out next week, I wouldn't be too surprised, if I'm honest.
I love the way you said "look forward to."
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's not now, is it? Complete pressure.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And Wigan have fancied themselves looking at us. They think if we get at them, then they're going to crumble. Whereas earlier in the season, I would have thought, we had this good knack of going and grinding out wins. So we went to these games, especially away from home, and teams thought, even though we're going to match them for a bit, eventually Arsenal will win the game because we were playing so well. And now, I know Wigan beat City, but really they're a championship club who shouldn't be getting close to us.
But Arsenal, don't you, Callum?
Yeah. The sad thing is, I feel like an absolute idiot, because around October, November time, I really thought this was the season that we were going to put, not necessarily win the league, but really, really go strong to the end of the season and do perhaps what Liverpool have been doing recently, and really, come April time, we're still well in with it, and now we're completely out of it. And even though it happened in 2010, 11, and 7, 8, I still felt that we would do better this season. And I was saying earlier, I think it's a perfect storm of some things that we can't necessarily control. Like, I think the fixture list hasn't been kind, having these horrible games and this horrible run. That's bad luck. The injuries, to an extent, is bad luck. But there's also, along with those, there's things that we could have done better. Buy players in January, which was just absolutely criminal. And we could have, and Wenger's tactics as well have been so off in these big games, and he doesn't seem to learn. And that's what's unforgivable. Is how many beatings do we have to take before we try something different? Before we, actually see before the manager actually sees what is so obvious with regards to how we're being beaten. And, I don't know. It's just it's all gone wrong for us in recent weeks, and I just hope that we can do something at the weekend, because every time in the last few weeks I felt like we've hit a new low. We always seem to do it again the next week. So I really hope the next week we're able to actually get through to the final, because I don't know if I could take a semi-final loss to a championship team.
Well, one of the things though is that, sorry Giles, is that I don't think anyone's even no one's even tweeted this, that Flamini's out for Saturday.
Yeah,
and you know what, Arteta, let's not even go there.
He was
I know his legs. It's not his fault. He's not a defensive midfielder. He really isn't. When you said about buying in January, he fucked up last summer. Forget January. Nothing really happens in January. He honestly, on our podcast last year, June, July, August, we were like, come on, striker, someone, anyone, try and get something up front with Giroud, because Giroud can't last the whole season. You know what, he did well. But it is like, they say like a game of two halves. This is like a game of two seasons, really. You've got the first part where we're normally shit, the second part where we normally fight for fourth, and we're winning every game. It's turned itself on its head. I actually can't see us winning a game at the moment. I mean, I know we're a bit negative. I'm not normally this negative, but trying to be a bit more realistic, because I've been quite positive recently.
I think, thankfully we've got Newcastle coming up, and they're about the only team in the league in worse form than us. So that could be our saving grace, and I think we will turn it around. I think our fixture list is favourable, and by no means am I thinking that those games are a given, because it's going to be really tough. It's likely that we're going to go to Norwich on the last day of the season, even though they've sacked Houghton tonight. They're probably still going to be, they ain't going to be safe, and I don't think they'll be relegated by then. So that'll probably be something to play for. And but going back to the signings, I completely agree with you about the summer. But the issue I had with January was that Walcott did his knee on the 5th of January.
Yeah.
So that ideally, that's like right. We've got because Walcott against Spurs in the FA Cup, he played up front and he actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
So and he's not the ideal solution, but Walcott could have been a good player to have up front. And obviously so that was obviously Wenger's thinking. I think he wanted to try and use him as a different option, and because that's where he's always wanted to play Theo. And he got injured it sounds silly to say, but at the best possible time in terms of that we had nearly 4 weeks to go and buy a new player. And the most annoying thing about our search for a striker is not necessarily, Wenger. I think the thing was on the deadline day in the summer window and the January window, we apparently made all these bids for players. So what does that say? That says that we recognised that we needed a striker. And if we recognised that we needed a striker, why on earth are we waiting till the last day of both windows to try and do business? Where the best case scenario is that we end up with Salomon Kalou or some shit like that, or we didn't sign anyone. It was just unbelievable. It's just ridiculous.
Callum, we don't actually know what really goes on. Remember, we're all told via Twitter or the papers that it was the last day of the season. I was aware that there was stuff going on from day one, but it just didn't come off. But I can't stand this January. It was last summer. That's when he missed big time. And whoever told him to go £40 million and a pound should be shot and sacked from our club. But anyway, look, that's done, and we now have to think that you are possibly right. Look, Ramsey brought. You know what I want to discuss tonight, Giles, and I will stop talking in a second. Is why the fact he's not playing Gnabry. I'm fascinated what you guys think. Why?
All right. Okay, Jasper. Jasper.
Sorry,
yeah.
Jasper.
I am going to be quiet, I promise.
I just, the thing about this game to me is I don't really understand why we lost it so badly, because yes, you can say that Everton were on better form than us. We only, managed to draw in the last game, and obviously the spanking with Chelsea, but this is the same team that we spanked 4-1 in the FA Cup. It wasn't just that we won the game. We absolutely spanked them. So I don't understand how that's suddenly been turned round to a 3-0 spanking by them. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And yes, we do have a lot of players out, Walcott, Ozil, Wilshere, blah, blah, blah. But, that was a decent team that we put out there and good enough to get a draw at least. We can get a point. If we can get a point at Man City, why can't we get a point at Everton? I don't understand why we capitulated. Is it just down to Koscielny being missing? I can't believe that, because Vermaelen was good against Man City. So I don't understand the total collapse, really. It looked, as you mentioned, in attack was where the problem is, because it looked like we were all confused. We had Cazorla and Rosicky, and Podolski trying to create things, but there wasn't enough imagination between the three of them with Giroud to actually create any clear-cut chances. They all just looked a bit, lacking in belief. And lacking in spark, whereas Everton had spark by the bucket load. So, Giroud was just a frustrated figure again. Every time he touched him, he screamed foul at the ref. And it's just because he couldn't get a proper, decent touch on the ball. The centre-backs were all over him, and he couldn't get a clear shot on goal. So he was spent the whole time being pissed off, and everybody else was trying to create stuff, but failing. And, this thing about swapping Cazorla and Rosicky over to confuse the defenders, it didn't work. Because, as you said, Baines got a run down the left, and we were all over the place. So there was no reason why we should have capitulated today. I don't know whether the players lacked belief, which is what it looked like, or whether Wenger got the tactics wrong again. I'll leave that up to others to decide. But it does, it gives us our confidence another hammer blow just when we needed it to pick up, before the FA Cup games.
What I did want to say is that, regards to like team selection, is that with Wenger, I always try to imagine what he is thinking, because I'm not ever arrogant enough to think that I'm doing a better job than him. But some things he does, I cannot fathom. For example, today you've got 2-0 down at half time in a game that we really can't afford to lose. Going forward, we've got nothing. Everton are having no problems defending against us. Why do we wait to the 65th minute to bring on at least one of Oxlade-Chamberlain or Ramsey? First of all, why didn't we start Oxlade-Chamberlain? Because
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, that attacking midfield three of Podolski, Cazorla and Rosicky, it's impotent without runners. Podolski comes deep occasionally, and he's always got the ability to score a goal or hit a good cross in, but he isn't going to create you anything, and he isn't quick enough to really get behind the defender. So, and Cazorla and Rosicky are similar players in the fact they'll always look to try and pass it on. They're not going to try and get on the end of a pass, and I just didn't understand why Oxlade-Chamberlain didn't start. And when it was 2-0, we were 2-0 down. Why on earth didn't we bring on Ramsey and Oxlade-Chamberlain earlier, or at least just Oxlade-Chamberlain? I can perhaps understand that Ramsey was unfit and you don't want to throw him in for too long. But I just cannot fathom why we didn't do that. I always try and make sense of what he's doing, even if I don't agree with it. But I just couldn't understand the logic. And going back to what you said, Amanda, about Gnabry, I know he wasn't on the bench today, but in weeks gone by, when Walker got his injury, I thought, well, at least we have Gnabry, who looks like, a quick, strong player on the wing who can, give us that outlet. And he has been, I think, I don't know what your opinion on it is, but for me, he's been really badly underused. And we've lacked pace on the wings for a long time. And we're either not playing Gnabry or we're not playing Oxlade-Chamberlain, or when we are playing Oxlade-Chamberlain, we're playing him in the centre of the park against Chelsea, where he was just torn apart. And, it just seems like there's some really obvious decisions that Wenger isn't making, and I really can't understand his thinking behind them. And you'd think after bad performance after bad performance, he'd say, right, maybe I was wrong. Let's try something different. Let's try Gnabry on the wing. Let's start Oxlade-Chamberlain on the wing. Let's do the obvious thing, because the thing that he's doing doesn't seem to be working. So today was another frustrating 90 minutes, and I just couldn't understand some of the decisions he made. And I always try to do that, but.
Can I agree with you. Can I just say something about this? Callum, you do watch Arsenal, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. He never makes a sub until 69 minutes, whatever the fuck is going on. I met him last year and I asked him this question. He denied it and everyone else laughed.
He denied it?
Yeah, he laughed. He said, I don't do, well, I can't do his accent, but he said, I don't do it at 69, 70 minutes. He said, Mr. Wenger, of course you do. And everyone laughed. And he went, we can set our watches by you. And he said, one time I make a substitution early, he said, and we lose. I said, that's one time in how many years? I said, it must be some scientific reason. Today he did it at 66 minutes. Okay. So when Hoddle was saying at half time he needs to do this, this and this, I tweeted again. I said, Hoddle, do you not watch us? Does anyone not know that he will not be making a sub till 69 minutes? No. So, Callum, when you're saying, I wasn't being facetious, I was thinking, why would you even say that? He doesn't, a decent, well, I shouldn't say this, a tactical manager would make the decision at 38 minutes if it was needed. For some reason, he doesn't.
That's the thing we did. Was it in the Liverpool game at Anfield where we brought a triple sub on the 55th minute or something? So
we were 3-0 down by then.
No, exactly. No, I completely agree.
But the breaking trend was last weekend when we were losing at Man City. He brought on who was it? He brought on early on 50 or just after 40 something, just after half time, and it kind of changed the game, didn't it?
Was it the
I can't remember.
Probably the
it wasn't Ox. It was Ox came on later. I think it was Podolski, wasn't it?
No, anyway, the point is, I think anybody who saw the game tonight, must agree that as soon as Ramsey and Ox came on, we had spark. And we never had that creative spark before then, because Ox in particular, as soon as he got the ball, he started running at players, dragging people out of position, and things were happening. He just headed straight for goal, and chances started to be created. And when those two came on, we must have created more chances in the minutes they came on than they were all game. And that's the annoying thing, and that's why, Callum's saying he should have started earlier, but he would never have brought him on earlier because, as you say, he can set his clock by him. But, once you've gone, it's stupid really, because once you've gone 3-0 down, I can't remember when the third goal was scored, but there was loads and loads
60th minute, I think,
there was like loads of game left. So once you're 3-0 down, obviously you can't win the game. The best you can hope for is a point if you score 2 goals and somehow dive in the box. So at that point, what's the point in waiting until the 70th minute for a substitute then? Get them on,
I think the only thing I would say is because Ramsey should not really have done any more than 15, max 20 minutes, I think that's that reason. Sonogo, I got confused what he was doing with Giroud. Giroud is... Oh, I can't even go there.
But
Sorry, Giles, go on.
from what I've heard, though, from people that were at the game, is Giroud was absolutely pants. He wasn't working. He was shrugging, throwing his hands up in the air. He was, he was very well. From what I'm hearing, that people were not pleased with his performance. I mean, I've defended him recently, saying, he gets left up on his own, he's isolated, he's not quick, blah blah blah, and this that the other. Give him, he obviously the workload is having an effect on him. But from what I'm understanding from people who were at the game, he just wasn't trying. He wasn't trying at all.
You do wonder what's going on with him, because he used to be, at the very least, he put in a shift, and it's starting to get, to the point now where you're like, are you really trying? It's just, the whole Giroud situation has been so mismanaged. First of all, he clearly isn't good enough to be starting for us. But I've always said that if you gave him, so for example, I don't know what's going to happen next season, I don't even want to think that far ahead, but if we'd use Giroud as a backup option, 20-25 games a season against the smaller teams, he's a good option to have. But he's played I think the other day they said that only Mertesacker played more games than him. And he's in a position where he's playing against 2 defenders all the time. There's no one running around. It worked well early in the season when players are playing off him and
everything went through. Everything went through in that first half of the season, like the Norwich goal,
But now the ball goes into him and there's no one to pass to. But that said, so first of all, I think Wenger has completely mismanaged him, and it goes back to the fact that we haven't bought another striker. But his performances recently have become indefensible. I still think some people go to attack him when it's not really his fault.
Some people blamed him for the 6-0 at Chelsea. So
exactly, because he missed the first chance, which is silly. But he has been really poor recently, and a lot of his games, he just seems, he's a limited player, and he tries stuff that he can't pull off, and it's just like, and you do tear your hair out. And at the beginning of the season, he was one of my favourite players, and now, if he were to leave in the summer, I'd be kind of glad, just because it's this thing that divides a lot of the fans, or makes a lot of fans ridiculously angry. So. I just want to
give a fuck what the fans think.
Well, it's one of these topics of debate that I'm kind of tired of hearing, and he doesn't really bring much. Although I still think he could be a good squad option, but he's gone from being one of my favourite players really to someone I'm kind of getting sick of.
Can I ask? I want to talk about the tactics. Recently, from what I've seen, he was nearly outsmarted by a novice in the Swansea game. He seems to be very, very inflexible with his tactics. I mean, I know, Amanda, you've shouted, 4-4-2, why don't we switch it to 4-4? I think it would help Giroud if we went 4-4. I know we'd lose something in the midfield, but just switch it somehow. I mean, Liverpool played 2 up front. They have 3 in midfield and a defensive midfielder.
Suarez plays out on the wing, though. He doesn't play out front in a classic 4-4-2.
But still, I mean, if you paired him with a Podolski playing...
Podolski's left position as a second striker, I'd agree, but the issue is then, if you play 4-4-2, then we ain't got room for Cazorla or Özil, because they can't play that deep. Really, they play off the... I don't know. Sorry, you carry on.
The thing is, the formation is a bit immaterial in a way, because the minute we kick off, we're playing like a 2-8-1, because, we Sanya and whoever's at left back just bomb on, and we've basically got like 9 midfielders, and Giroud's still on his own. When was Sanya ever in his own half today? He was always right up in the opposition penalty box waiting to cross it in. So if you took a midfielder out and put them up front, you'd still have loads of people across there, because you'd have Monreal on the left and Sanya on the right. So you'd end up with plenty of midfielders. I can't see the whole thing falling apart just because you move one player a bit forward.
Well, my point is that, we're tactically inflexible. This formation that we start with, or whatever, it was built around Cesc Fabregas. He's left in 2011, and we're still trying it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, it works against some teams, but against the bigger teams, with more tactically astute managers, we're found out. And today, it all came home to roost because, everyone's saying that Martinez is a bright young manager, so on and so forth. But I thought, Wenger still might have his number. We'll get out there with a point. We'll show the cohesiveness that we employed against Man City. We were much more tighter as a unit against Man City, and I thought we'd do that coming into this game. We didn't, and it's just so that what frustrates me more than the money, more than anything else. It's the lack of flexibility, the want to try new ideas, something new, change it around, adapt to your opposition. He's always talking about we concentrate on our own strengths. Fuck that. Do you know what I mean? Everybody else, the game has changed so much now that you have to have a dossier on who you're coming up against, because they will sure as hell have a dossier on you. And it just doesn't change. That's why for me personally, I don't really want to. I want this to come to a natural end. This cycle come to a natural end. His contract's finishing at the end of the season. Let's win him the FA Cup and let's try somebody else, because at some point we're going to have a new man in charge to take us forward. I just don't know if he's got the same staff around him, the yes men around him. He doesn't bring on new ideas like Ferguson used to. Every so often he'd bring in McLaren or Kidd or Quiroz or the other guy, Mullenstein or whatever. He'd always have new ideas around him. Wenger doesn't like that. Why?
Well, it's interesting you make that point, because when we were playing well at the first half of the season, we weren't just playing better than last season, we were playing actually a slightly different style. So a lot of us thought, well, maybe this is the Bould effect, finally coming into action, because there were a load of 1-0s, there were a load of clean sheets, and that definitely wasn't the case the last few seasons. We've been leaking goals all over the place. So we actually looked like a different team when we were playing well. But then still, when we lose games, the Bould effect seems to go out the window, and it goes back to those games 3 seasons ago where someone catches on the break, Sanya's running back like mad 5 yards behind somebody, and there's a 3-against-1 attack, and we're wide open, and it's all very embarrassing again. So I don't know whether the Bould effect works up to a point, or
it does work up to a point, I think, but until you come up against the bigger teams, because let's take the Aston Villa game out of it. I mean, that was just an abomination. Yeah. But, I think the next defeat was Man United. Was it when we went up to Old Trafford? And then after that it was Man City, was it? Or something. It seems as though when we come up against a bigger team, with better players, with a manager that knows what he's doing, we come unstuck.
The thing is with Bould is that he's going to be on the training ground teaching the players how to tackle, how to head of the ball, the kind of the technical aspects of it. But when it gets into the big games, or any game, it's Wenger's tactics, how we play when the fullbacks bomb up, whether we play a high line or this, and that's where we fall down. And throw in the psychological scars we clearly have from these absolute demolitions, and you've got a recipe for disaster. And that's what we saw again today. Vermaelen was just the first goal when it came across to, he left it to go across, and of course they scored about 5 seconds later. Yeah, someone, I forgot who it was on Twitter, someone described the gap between Monreal and Vermaelen being the corridor of indecision or something like that, because, neither of them really did anything with any conviction. And I just think the way we're defending, it largely comes down to Wenger, because he's the one who makes the big calls, and whilst Bould, we don't really know for sure, but I'd imagine that whilst Bould is doing the technical aspects of defending and whatnot, Wenger's the man who sends them out to play in a certain way, and that includes the defence. So, I think you're right, Giles, about we need to perhaps bring in a couple of new ideas. But the thing is, Wenger's been managing the club in such a way for so long that ain't going to change now, because, we could potentially be in the last month of his time with Arsenal. Maybe he'll be here for a year or 2 extra, but, he's not going to make any serious changes like that with such little time left in terms of how long his Arsenal career has been. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. That's why I think let it come to its natural conclusion and let's try something new.
I think, I know earlier Amanda said that she thought that the contract was signed. I really think he's waiting to see. I think, we've never, Wenger and Giz, there've never been people to hold off on a decision because they're worried about what the fans think. They'll do whatever regardless of how unpopular it is. And, there's certain, I've listened to a lot of people who, not necessarily in the know, but, the journalists, whatever, who follow Arsenal, and none of them seem to be very sure that he's going to stay. And he seems, there's something about, the way we've got all these contracts signed up, you do wonder if he's kind of securing the future for the next manager to come in. And, I'm kind of torn, I'm edging more towards now what you're saying, that he should leave at the end of the season. Because, you do worry that it's only going to get worse and we might do better with someone else at the helm. And I think if we did win the FA Cup this season and finish in the top 4, we could leave with his head held high because, whoever does take over Arsenal is coming into a great, we've got a very good squad with a lot of good young players.
Yeah.
Now we've got, a great stadium and financial, and the financial muscle now, hopefully, to compete for trophies again. And, there is that the part of me that a few months ago I didn't even want to think about him leaving, but now I'm more open to the idea of him gracefully stepping aside with an FA Cup, and perhaps that is the way to go. But it's so hard to call at the moment, and I really would not be surprised if he left, regardless of what happens.
I read a blog, Amanda, Mark King, don't you? I think it's MZ9 or something.
Yeah.
And he was sort of comparing the end of Brian Clough's reign. I mean, how he was such a success. He was
they were relegated, were they not?
I know, but I mean, forgetting that, I mean, he said basically the demise.
I know, but he definitely was downhill.
Most successful manager, and the image, the overriding image you had of him was his green jumper, the red face, slapping a kid on the head or whatever it was, and he said that he doesn't want to remember Wenger as the man that was fiddling with his coat jacket.
That's what he's become.
Pressing ring in his hands and whatnot, and always, papering over the cracks. I really, really, really want the team to go out and win an FA Cup for him, and I really just think that, for me, it's time to. I've really sort of gone away from the sentimental side of it now and saying, he's led us through the times of austerity. Let him lead us through the times of prosperity. He deserves it. There's no room for sentiment now. Like Amanda said, like you guys said, we've not only had last time, I think we had money. We knew that the Puma deal was coming in from 2012, the year that Van Persie left. We were told that Giroud wasn't a replacement, he was a supplement. So the money's been there. It's been building. Why haven't we gone out and bought the players that we needed to? Last summer came, we fumbled and crashed around. It was like a competition between us and Man United who could fuck up the summer transfer window best. You know what I mean? And finally pulled it out of the bag. I mean, we got the money. For some reason, he didn't want to. We didn't get the players that we should have got. And now we're here. I just don't think.
At least Man United had the excuse of a new manager and a new chairman, a new executive.
Exactly. We didn't have the excuse, and I look at the way he's got us playing, how we're kind of. I mean, coming up against the Fulhams and the Norwiches is one thing, but we struggle to beat Tottenham. We can't beat bloody Everton. Liverpool handed their asses to us. I just think, is the game kind of passing him by? I don't know. What do you reckon, Jasper? I'm going to come to you, Jasper, then Amanda.
Yeah, it's a tough one there. I mean, on that subject, I mean, every time we lose a game, everybody says, either Wenger out or we fucked up the transfer window when we didn't get the players we want. It's all about the players. We haven't got enough quality. And I totally understand that. But again, if you go back to today's game, we had enough quality on the pitch to beat Everton. It's the same team we beat 4-1. We fucked it up either because we got the tactics wrong or the players lacked belief or both. So in fact, yes, it relates to the transfer window as well. And it relates to the manager. But it doesn't necessarily mean, if we'd have had so-and-so on the pitch, we would have won it. There are different reasons why you lose games. But to answer your question about Wenger, I don't know, I'm torn because On the one hand, I think if we get to the summer window and we do get the players we want and we go out and spunk 100 million, then I'd like Wenger to be the one who gets to use that 100 million and show on the pitch what he can do, because when he had a team of fantastic players in every position, we were invincible. So if we got to that stage again, I'd like to see what he can do. But on the other hand, there's still a massive question mark over the tactical side of him. As you already pointed out, if Swansea can beat us tactically, if Mourinho can spank us tactically, and if Everton are outthinking us tactically, you have to ask the question of, is that anything to do with transfer windows? Is it just the manager stubbornly sticking to the same way of playing, and we're becoming too predictable, and people are starting to read us and work out how to beat us, which then means he's got to go. So it's difficult. But the other thing as well is that, when it comes to transfer window, we can blame Wenger as much as we like, but I don't know whether it's actually down to the negotiators and this the Dick guy and what's his name, Gazidis. Do you know what I mean? Because Wenger said, look, if you ask me any striker I want in the world, I want fucking Suarez, right? And who would disagree with that? I think every fan would say, yeah, he's fucking brilliant. And then what happened? Somebody who was in charge of it, Dick Law or whoever, cocked it up. Is that his fault? I don't know. Maybe not. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And then we fucked up Higuain, and then we fucked up someone else. So if this is down to the negotiators and the backroom staff, get rid of them. Get bloody David Dean back in or something.
We don't know for sure, but a lot of the sounds seem to be that Wenger's very inflexible with regards to how much he'll pay for a player. That he got. I can't remember where I was.
In the past, he's always skimped because of the stadium. But if he's going to spunk 40 million, on Suarez, and then 42.5 on Ozil, he can't be that inflexible.
Well, no, he valued a sort of 42.5 million. He was prepared to pay that money. But I forgot where I heard this a while ago. But apparently, we send Dick Law out to these places. He comes with what Wenger's prepared to pay. They say no, and then he leaves. So there's no negotiation. Yeah. So, and also, was it in Draxler? I know.
Draxler was in January.
Apparently, they said, I can't remember how much. They said we bid 30 million. They wanted a little bit more, and we just said no. The most.
I heard that we said. We bid 30 million. They said no, and they said, all right, do you want Fabianski and Podolski? And they said, fuck off.
Well, I don't know about that. Again, we have to stress that we don't know for sure. But from what the idea I get of having read and heard lots of things about it is that Wenger's he's not prepared he wants to get value for money, and I think with Özil he felt that he was getting value for money because he's a world class midfielder, but perhaps with like Draxler he's a prospect, he's a good player, but he's not world class. He isn't prepared to pay that extra 5-10 million or whatever to because he might not ever make it to that level, and he could be a massive flop. We're all speculating, but that's the impression I've gotten, that Wenger's quite inflexible in terms of how much he values players.
It's kind of been the same since the beginning, though, isn't it? Ever since we moved to the new stadium, and we've had transfer window after transfer window where we've bought less, spent less than the fans wanted, spent less than the team needed, and we've always wondered whose fault it was. We've never known, because then, Hillwood would go to the Mirror or some tabloid shite and say, we've got a war chest of this much, and then Wenger would say, oh, no, we haven't. And so we don't know whether it's Wenger being stingy, we generally don't have the money, the board being tight, no one's ever known what's going on. And even right up to the point, after all those years when we bought Ozil, we still don't know, who actually coughed up the money for that, or whether the Puma deal changed things, or whether he's always had that money, we just haven't spent it. So we're still in the dark. And right now, the fact that we don't have a top quality striker that we've needed all season, we still don't know whose fault that is. So we're always in the dark. The club don't communicate properly, and that's why the fans get so frustrated. But ultimately, if you're thinking, should Wenger go or should he stay? Well, we're not going to win the Champions League any minute now, are we, with Wenger in charge? That's one thing for sure. And the league, well, we thought we would this season, but that's all gone up the spout. So there's a good argument to replace him, certainly.
Can I ask you lot a question? Because I got slaughtered for this, but think about it logically, okay? What is the point in us being in the Champions League? We get to the same position every year apart from 2006. We don't spend the money that we get from the Champions League on players that we need. So tell me the reason we're in the Champions League. It mucks up our season anyway.
Well, I think what you said about not spend... Sorry, carry on.
I'm sorry. I want to make a point because everyone, they got my point in the end, but if it is to draw the players in, we're not. We've got Ozil out of all the years of this Champions League. The big players want to play in it. I personally think that this isn't. I don't think we're going to get fourth. That's not me being negative. I don't think we are. If we don't get fourth, I want seventh, because I certainly don't want to be in the Europa League playing Thursday night in the middle of Russia somewhere. And I personally think that it would help us. I will never, ever, ever want Arsenal to ever lose a game. Ever. Don't care where we are. Unless it would help Tottenham win the league or something. But I would never, ever want us to lose a game. But my other point about this is that if we drop out of the Champions League for a season or two, we could go for the Premier League and the Cup and stuff. And, you know, I got slaughtered for this because they thought I was just being negative. But I'm trying to put a slant on this because, of course, I want to win the Champions League. That's the one I've never seen. So that's why we all want to win that. But we're not going to win that. That's it. End of. The way that we're going each season, we're not going to win it. So what's the point in being in it and disrupting our season? And all we're doing is lining the shareholders' pockets with more money. We're not spending it.
Well, as a left field thought, I mean, look at Liverpool. They dropped completely out of Europe, and look at what's, you know, and look at the benefit it's had for their season. They're now true title contenders.
Yeah, they're going to win it. I've got a feeling.
And they actually attracted Suarez to their club when they were out of the Champions League.
Yeah.
So
Suarez was playing at Ajax at the time, though. I mean, it's worth pointing out that he wasn't this world-class striker when they got him. And I think if we did drop out the Champions League, we could attract good players, you know. But then again, we wouldn't have got Özil, as you said, Amanda. But I don't know. I still, for me, the Champions League is great fun, and we don't have to be contenders for it for me to enjoy it. You know, when we beat Dortmund away from home, when we beat Napoli at home, we've had some great European nights, and I don't want to lose that. Especially to go, if we drop out and go play in the arse end of nowhere, in Russia or whatever. But what I would say, though, is that Wenger needs to be more flexible in terms of his priorities. Like, for him, it's always been the Champions League ahead of the FA Cup, for example. But where we are at the moment, obviously we're still in the FA Cup and we're at the Champions League, but I think we all felt this season, let's go for the Cups. Let's not rest players in the Cups and go big in the Champions League necessarily, because we ain't going to win it. And the thing is, you say, we haven't spent the money we've got for the Champions League, which is completely true. But then, you know, the fact of the matter is, if we drop into the Europa League, that we could get even tighter in terms of money and spend even less. So, I know some people keep saying they want us to drop out, which I think is fair enough. I can understand why people are getting a bit disillusioned with it. But, you know, perhaps we take it for granted a little bit because we do have it every season. And I know next year, if we are out of the Champions League, you know, I'm not going to enjoy watching Liverpool play the big European games, and we're travelling away to these shitty teams in Eastern Europe, and like Tottenham do every year. You know, I don't want to be down there.
Yeah, that's my point, Callum. I don't want to be in the Europa League. That's why I said I'd end up 6th, 7th.
Well, that's the thing. The Europa League has become a bit of a joke, hasn't it? Because it's got the point now where teams, and like with Man United, I really want them to finish 6th, because I don't want them to finish 7th, because then next season they'll probably have 150 million pounds worth of investment, and Liverpool have shown this season how good it can be to have none of this.
So then so it's all right for Man United to have 150. We would have more. So why shouldn't we do it then?
Well,
we're worrying about United next season. No one's worrying about us, but we'll be in that position. We've got more money than them anyway. And this is the point. So my next point is, Callum, okay, we played Dortmund. I think it was at home, and I think it was 3 days before we played United, or was that Dortmund away when we lost?
It was Dortmund away. We beat Liverpool on the weekend, and went to Dortmund, then lost to United.
Right, okay. And we lost to United because we played Dortmund. If we hadn't played Dortmund, we'd have beaten United. And this is my whole big thing about us with our squad. The depth of squad is not big enough to go in the Champions League. Look, in the realistic world, if all our injuries are back by August, okay, and he strengthens with 3 or 4 extra players that we need, top-class players, I would never want to be out of the Champions League. But realistically, is he? Would he? Probably not.
Based on past history, probably.
And it's the same old every single year since we've been at the Emirates. All right. I also put a little tweet out that calls Mary hell about why the fuck we ever left Highbury, but that could be a discussion for another night. So what I'm saying is, Callum, is I don't want to be in the Europa League. I want to do what Liverpool have done. You know, do you think they're bothered that we had fantastic nights against Napoli? Look what's happening. They're, 2 points clear of the Premier League. Great, it was fantastic against Napoli. The place was rocking. Dortmund, we were naive in defending and we gave the ball away and we ended up second in our group and played Bayern. So at the end of the day, it means nothing anymore. And you're right, we've been in it 16 years. For what? For what?
Actually, you said that when you made that point, you were unpopular, but it was only 2 or 3 podcasts ago that I said that was just before the second leg at Bayern. I said that I hope we get knocked out tonight.
Yeah,
you know,
I said it.
It's the same as you. I don't ever want us to lose a game, but actually, in the position that we were in the league at the time, the position we were in the FA Cup at the time, getting knocked out of the Champions League would make it so much better chance for us to win both of those things, especially seeing as it's our best chance to win the league for years because, you know, Man United changed manager, City changed manager, blah, blah, blah. So it's the best opportunity and therefore the less comps we're in, the more chance we have of winning the domestic stuff. So I totally agree on that.
I can see where you... Amanda, I can see where you're coming from, and I think the general theory behind Champions League football is that you qualify, you get more money, and then you build your squad so you can compete on different fronts, which is completely which we haven't done, and that's perhaps why we've struggled so much. But you know, as you say, the issue is if we don't finish in the Champions League, we're playing in the Europa League, so you know, irrespective.
Not necessarily. United can catch us, Tottenham can catch us. I'm telling you.
Well, okay. Well,
Callum, we've got 5 or 6 matches left. That's a lot of points.
Games. Well, true, but at the same time, I can't. Like, you look at United are 7 points behind us, and there's 15 points to play for. One of those games is against Everton. That's the thing. But you don't drop from Champions League football to nothing. You drop from Champions League football to the Europa League, and realistically, I think we will finish at least 6th. So.
If we put it this way, Callum, if we get to the point where it's the final game of the season, if we win it with the Europa League, if we lose it, then we're not in any European Cups. I will streak across the pitch, you know, just to put people off. I would want us to actually lose the game on purpose. And
the thing is, I think
Jasper, you won't be popular saying that.
What I often hear though with dropping out of the top 4, I think that there is a legitimate. I can understand exactly what you're saying, Amanda, because it is somewhat frustrating that we have these midweek games when we realistically can't compete on all the fronts. So it makes it is frustrating. So it's not perfect, and it's ridiculous that we have the Europa League, which is just a competition that no one takes seriously, and unless you're playing in Portugal or some of these other little countries, or you're someone one of the lower teams that gets into Europe, perhaps it's exciting. But for a club like Arsenal, it's not where we should be. And but it's not a perfect situation, and I don't know. I if you ask me right now, do I want to be in the Champions League next season? I will say yes. But if we were to drop out of the Champions League this season, I'm not going to start thinking that it's the end of the world, because I think we'll manage, and I don't think an awful lot will change. But it's very high risk, with this strategy, because a lot of people I know who want Wenger sacked keep saying, oh, we need to just drop out of the Champions League. That'll scare the board into spending, because all they care about is the top 4, and Wenger will get sacked and all this. But I don't really know if it would. What could happen is that we drop out of Champions League football. We're no longer as attractive a club to come to. So we get even more tight-fisted with our money. So now we don't spend as much money because we're not in the Champions League, and not as many good players want to come to us. And then, of course,
it could be a downward negative spiral.
Exactly. So then it could, as Andre Villas-Boas would say. So then it could become even tougher to get back up to the top. So I'm very reluctant. I think if you're, as you said, I'm only ever going to wish for Arsenal to lose a game if perhaps, I don't know, I can't really imagine this happening. But if we win and Tottenham win the league as a result or something like that. But I don't think the rewards of dropping out of the Champions League. It seems incredibly risky, and perhaps it could work out in a way that we end up being able to be better for the league because of it, but at the same time, I could see it going wrong as well.
I see no guarantee of us winning the league if that happens as well, is it? Because we're still up against City and all the oil billionaires.
But Callum, the only way your argument stands up is if we spend the money, and we don't on past seasons. So that's my only argument. If he spent the money, then my argument wouldn't stand up, because we need that money to sustain with the wages and the players. He doesn't. He's bought one in 9 years of that calibre, which is Ozil. So if he's going to start spending this year, let's be in the Champions League. We'll have to be, because that's where all the big top players want to play. But he doesn't.
But you're saying we don't spend, which I agree with that sentiment. We should have spent a hell of a lot more. But all I'm saying is that by dropping out of Europe, some people might say we're going to have this big counter reaction and spend loads more to get back in it. But we could just tighten our pockets to say, all right, we're out of the Champions League, less money. Let's sell more players. Let's buy players on cheaper contracts, and then we end up having a worse squad. So. Yeah, you're right. We haven't spent enough, but we could spend potentially even less by dropping into the Europa League.
Depends who the manager is. Depends who the manager is, Callum, doesn't it? Because if we change manager at the same time, we might go on a spending spree. I mean, look, there are clubs that are nowhere near the Champions League. They finished 10th, and they still buy a whole new squad of players. You know, so it depends on who the manager is and whether the board give him permission to go and spunk 100 million.
Look, I just want to make it clear that I'm not trying to defend. I'm not trying to make out that the Champions League is the be-all and end-all and that we should be aiming to finish fourth every season because it's incredibly important. All I'm saying is that I'm slightly uncomfortable with the fact we're all just making guesses here what would happen. You know, and I don't know what would happen. It's too unpredictable. There's too much. We don't exactly know what's going on behind the scenes at Arsenal. It could work out well for us. It might not. So, you know, I think there's more of a case if you said finish in the top 4 next season or go finish 7th and then have no European football, I'd perhaps be more open to that. But realistically, we either get top 4 or we get Europa League at the moment. I don't think we'll fall as low as 7th. I think realistically, the way we are now, we'll either get Champions League football or we'll either get Europa League football. And either way, we're going to have those midweek games.
But Callum, we won't because, well, not necessarily because we still have to qualify in July anyway. We've got to go through all that again. So,
yeah, true, but I mean, everyone's...
And then now players are coming back from the World Cup. Oh, it's just... Do you know what? This season is just turning out to be an absolute nightmare.
Oh, I just want to end now. I just want to end.
So, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. First question is, what do you see as progression? 4th place in the FA Cup, 5th place in the FA Cup? I'm going to ask you first, Jasper.
Well, considering that we finished in the top 4 last season, but we were trophyless, then top 4 in the FA Cup is progress. But, you know, you have to, as with every season, you have to take the position we finish and the cups we win in context of what's happened in the season. And considering we were top of the league for months and months on end, and we're now fucking it up royally, it is a bit disappointing, even if we win the FA Cup. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd be ecstatic to finally put the trophy hoodoo to bed, and maybe it'll be a springboard onto bigger things. I'll be as happy as anyone if we win that cup. But on the league side of things, you know, I would have liked to finish 2nd or 3rd, which I don't think is going to happen now. 2nd or 3rd plus the FA Cup is pretty good. 4th plus the FA Cup is progress, but not as much as I'd hoped for.
Okay, Callum.
If you'd asked me a month or so ago, I'd say that if we won the FA Cup and finished in the top 4, that it would be progression. But I think the manner of recent performances and defeats, the way our season's completely crumbled around us, I don't think you could call it progress. I think generally your league position and the amount of points you gain season to season, how you do respective to fixtures the year before is how progression really should be measured. And cups are incredibly important. And if we win the FA Cup, it'll be great for us to finally put that drought to bed. But, you know, cups are a little bit of a lottery with regards to who you get drawn against if you have it, you know, whereas a league season, I think, is more truthful to where you stand as a club. And I think this season we've after a false dawn, you know, we were the 4th best team in the country last season. You know, this season we've got better than United, but Liverpool have overtaken us. So really, I think we're kind of in the same place. And I think we're in a position to progress this summer if we spend some money, which is obviously a huge if. And we've had some players have stepped up this season, and some I guess haven't. But I would be very reluctant to call this season progress, given the way we've completely collapsed, and some of the performances this season have just, especially the last few weeks, have just been unforgivable. And on the back of that, I find it hard to say that we've progressed in any meaningful way.
Okay, Amanda, 4th place, FA Cup.
Well, I sort of agree with Callum and Jasper on this because I also tweeted another one. I'm so living before I didn't stop tweeting. Is that in my opinion we are where we are because that's where we should be. It's just we had a false dawn the first few months, constantly winning. We had movement in front of Ozil. We had Ramsey. We had what we had. Okay, we have players moving every 5 seconds. Jack, we miss all of them. And I think if you'd have looked at the squad and what we needed at the beginning, I would have taken 4th in the FA Cup, would have bitten your hand off for it, absolutely. But where we were, I think we were actually at 1 point 10 points ahead of Liverpool, is an utter disgrace for a club of our size to just capitulate like this. The confidence has gone. They walked on the pitch. They actually didn't play too badly today, apart from Monreal. I can't even imagine ever being a footballer again, and Sanya deciding to be in the other half of where he should be all of the game. I don't know what this is going on with this high line and these left and right backs. I give up. But progression, well, of course, because we haven't won a trophy for 9 years, and as Jasper said, let's get that off our back. But winning the FA Cup is... It's not the Premier League, is it? But I would have taken this at the beginning of the season for sure, definitely.
Funny because a couple of weeks ago, when I think it was after the Chelsea match, wasn't it, or something? And I come on and I said, "Nah, 4th place and the FA Cup not good enough for me." You lot, people saying it's progress.
I argued with you.
And you say it's progress. I separate the two. The FA Cup, to get that monkey off our back, is one thing, because you don't want to go 10 years is a big psychological figure. It's a big psychological barrier. It's a big mental one. You know, you want to get rid of that one. But in terms of the league, we were 128 days at the top of the league. 128 days. We were doing so well. We've fallen off. We haven't even just sort of slipped. We've had, I don't even know how you could call it, how Wenger could call it a road accident. We've had, how many road accidents does it take to have actually a pile-up? You know, a major motorway pile-up. I just don't understand. I can't say that 4th place, limping into 4th place, is going to be progress. Progress was last season when we actually went on an unbeaten run to get 4th place. We are limping. We are crawling to that line at the moment, and it's not progress as far as I'm concerned. In fact, if I was to be truthful, what I'm truthfully thinking is we've regressed. And with a better squad, well, in context of the performances now, with a better squad than we had last season, we've not really improved.
Charles, come on. I was just about to say that, Callum. Injuries. I mean, you take 6 of those players out of any of those 3 top teams. Charles, come on.
But then again, you look at the tactics. If you don't have the players about, you can't moan and whine. You adjust.
But when you've got Walcott's our best attacking outlet, Özil's the key man of the team, Ramsey, who was on course to be player of the season. I don't like making excuses, but at the same time, you can't ignore this. If you look at Liverpool's team, so we lost Walcott, so he's our best attacking player. I don't know, take Sturridge out for them. We lost Ramsey, right? Gerrard's out for them. Özil, best attack, take Suarez out. So if you take away, and then we've lost Koscielny, so you take away their best defender, and suddenly if you look at every single team and take out their 3 or 4 best players for long periods of the season, everyone is going to look worse. And obviously you have to respond to that, and we haven't done that particularly well.
Even Man City would look crap if you did that.
All right, well, you know what? You're talking about the top 4, but excuse me for thinking this, but Swansea haven't got a better squad than ours, even with all our players out. Nor has Stoke City.
No, I'm not.
Nor has Southampton.
No, they were.
These are teams that we fucked up against.
Yeah, but I'm not saying I'm not saying we would have won the league if we hadn't had injuries. I'm just saying that we would have fared better than we have done. I'm sure.
We're talking about. I think you guys are talking about in the context of Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool. I'm talking about the average and below average teams that we've struggled against this season in recent weeks. Even without those players, man for man, we should be beating those teams, but we're not. And you can't tell me, we can't beat those teams because Ozil's not there.
No one is saying that though. They're just saying, I think over the course of 38 games, you're going to have off days. But the difference is when you have Walcott, Özil and Ramsey, your off days can end up, you can still win the game because you've got that bit of quality to get you through. And that's how, Liverpool today didn't play very well against West Ham. A couple of bits of quality from, Suarez did a great pass from Gerrard for the first goal with the Suarez controls, and they get a penalty. And they didn't play particularly well today, but they ground out a win. If you took out their best players of the team, they wouldn't be able to grind them out. And I think you can't ignore the fact that we've had these injuries. And you're completely right. We should be beating Swansea at home, regardless of how many players
we should have beaten Stoke City. Somebody came up with an excuse for the reason why we lost to Stoke City is because the grass was too long. The grass was too long. That's great. I mean, for me, I'm sorry, but we're coming up against inferior teams and they're bloody outwitting us. They're outwitting us. If you haven't got your players, if you haven't got all your max and your top players, what do? You make adjustments. You can't come to work and say, oh, I forgot my fucking pen, I forgot my highlighter, I forgot my ruler, I forgot this, I can't do anything. You make do with what you got. Especially when you're coming up against the smaller teams. You've got to make do with what you can't keep trotting out the excuse that we've lost this player, we've lost that. Okay, against the Man Cities and that's fine. But against teams that you should be beating with the squad, the talent that we have on display, we have available, that's not good enough.
All I'm saying, Giles, is that in the 38-game season, regardless of who's injured or not, you have off days. I mean, Chelsea lost to Villa the other week. They lost to Palace. You know, they're more than capable of beating these teams, but you are going to have days where you're not good enough. We've had too many of them. I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying that, because of the injuries, we couldn't have won the game. Of course we could have won those games. We should have beaten Stoke or at least not lost the match. Should have beaten Swansea at home. We didn't, and that will happen. All I'm saying is that every team has off days, and if we had those players, those off days might not come as frequently, even if we've underperformed in these matches that we have to be winning.
Going back to the original point, I still think, even though you're right, Giles, we should have beaten those teams, I still think we've made some kind of progress because, you take 6 players out of any team, they're worse. But it's not just about that. If you look at the good bit of the season, the way we played, when we came up against, it doesn't matter who we came up against. When we played well, we were better than we normally are. We were absolutely sparkling. And when we played badly, we ground out the wins somehow. There were plenty of ugly wins in there. And, as they always say, that's what champions do. So we seem to be able to beat people beautifully and beat people ugly. And that, to me, was different to the previous seasons. Like I said, I don't know if it was the Bould effect, I don't know if it was the Ozil effect, the Ramsey effect, everyone being lifted by that finally getting a big purchase, but we did look like a different side, and that's why, I do feel that there has been some progress made, but obviously, talking about us being different is a bit of a moot point when we've collapsed and we've forgotten what all that was about. So you can argue, have we forgotten what it's about, or was it just that those key players were so crucial for us that without them we look like a skeleton side of fuckwits? I don't know. But
yeah.
So are we? Is Wenger? Can Wenger? Are we looking at Wenger not being able to extract any more out of him? I don't think he's lost the dressing room, but are we looking at a man that can't extract the best? I mean, unless he has his best players, he can't extract the best out of the talent he has available. Is that what we're looking at?
Because he hasn't got the talent available.
So you can't. I know that, but what I'm saying is,
you've got Bentner, Sonogo. I'm not being funny. Where's the talent?
Yeah, but you still got Caffola. You've still got
who's having a terrible season.
Doesn't matter. He was still our best player last season, the man.
Well, he's not this season.
But you still got to extract. You still got to extract the best out of him. You've got to cajole it out of him.
Yeah, but he bought Ozil, didn't he? And then Cazorla got injured.
But Ozil's not playing anymore. Ozil's now our main man.
Yeah, but now Cazorla's playing in a team of not with any confidence.
I'm sorry, but he's an international.
Don't you shout me. You want me to shout? I'll shout.
I'm just saying, he's an international.
Yes, so it's not. Last season he was superb. This season he was injured. Then Ozil got bought, and then Ozil took that part of his game away, and then he plays him in the wrong position, and he's not playing well. So carry on. What's the next one?
Well, that's the thing. What I want to say about Cazorla is that he suffers in a similar way that Özil has, in the fact that he is, master of the puppets, but all his strings are cut off. He's got no one to pass to.
No one to pass to.
So his form would have been. I'm sure his form would have looked a lot better if he'd had more runners. So with him, he's not a guy to go running onto passes or obviously he hasn't been as good as last season, but I think we all mitigate Özil's form fairly. I think down to the fact that we have no runners. There's no Walcott. Chamberlain's only just come back, and we're not really using him on the wing. So he had a long period where he just wasn't having anyone to pass to, bar Giroud, who was being man-marked out of the game and genuinely just playing like a twat anyway. I think it's the same for Cazorla.
Can I just say, look, where I sit at the Emirates, second half, Ozil's in front of me, okay? And I don't know where any of you sit at the Emirates. I'm
usually on the west.
Okay, so you may not be watching.
Nearer the clock.
I'm the other side, I'm the east.
You're on the North Bank side then?
Yeah, I'm the east by the North Bank.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is when Ozil's looking for somebody, Giroud's flapping, right? Then Ozil might lose the ball and it goes down the other end. I'm watching Ozil at those few seconds, standing there in despair. He's got nobody to pass to. Where everyone's blaming him, saying he's crap, which thank God. don't even go there with that. He's got no runners. He's got no one moving. They're all standing there. We're all screaming the same scream. So, you know...
We know that, but I'm saying...
Okay, but what I'm saying is, Giles, so you've taken that out of our team. A massive chunk of runners have gone. And now you're looking at Giroud, how Giroud would be without these players. A very average striker. Very average. Okay? So it isn't Giroud's fault. I'll always say this. Yes, he needs to put a bit more effort in the last few games, definitely. But it's not his fault. He's not good enough. The man picks him. I've always said this. Who picks the team? Who coaches the team? Who makes the subs? Who does the practice?
Exactly.
Giroud has never been the sort of player. I was going to say, Giroud's never been the sort of player that's going to, you know, create a goal out of nothing anyway, like Drogba. You're not going to bring it down his chest, beat two players and smash it in the net. That's just not him. You know, he wants to be a part of that attacking move that flicks balls on. But if no one's making a run, he's got no one to flick it on to. So today, I agree with you, Amanda. Today is a classic example where you had Cazorla, Rosicki and Podolski, who are all the people that want to look up, spot a pass, make this a brilliant through ball, just like Ozil, and while someone runs onto it and gets a fantastic goal, you know. But if there isn't anyone making a run forward or sideways or whatever, all of these people are a bit redundant because they don't make late runs into the box themselves. And it's kind of why Flamini scored against City, because, you know, you know what I mean? There's no one else to do it.
No.
The only person that is going to make the run is probably Oxlade-Chamberlain, and he's on the bench, or he's in the middle where he's not going to be making a run anyway.
But it's just what I'm saying, like, we've still got the talent, even without Ozil there. You still look at the talent we have available. Podolski,
on paper,
but can you let me finish? Can you let me finish, please, Amanda? Please, can I make a point, please?
He's asking.
Go on.
All right, so Right, apart from Cazorla and Podolski, we've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, we've got Rosicki, we've got Arteta, who can play a more advanced role. You know, with the right tactics employed, we should be making a better fist of it. I know we've been missing Ramsey, we've been missing. It's funny now we say we're wishing Wiltshire, and half the fucking fan base want him out. You know, we've missed Ozil as well. We've got Gnabry there. Do you know what I mean? We should have enough players in that pool that are available to actually make a better fist of the competition than we have recently. The only time that I've seen them in recent weeks actually fucking pull their finger out was against Man City last week, Amanda. That was the only time they pulled their finger out and said, "Yeah, let's do something." But we're not going to go quietly into the night.
Have you finished a little rant
as they said in Independence Day.
Have you finished a little rant now?
Go on.
Right. What was I just about to say? I've lost my train of thought now.
I'll continue.
Right. First of all, what I was going to say is that on paper what you're saying is correct, okay? But really their confidence is low. So what I'm trying to say is their skills have gone, Giles. They're mentally they've gone. Look at them today. Seriously, we should have beaten Everton today. They weren't brilliant, Everton. They took their chances. They moved the ball around. And this is what I was going to say to you. The reason I think the Ox is on the bench is because the boy does not stop giving the ball away. Okay? I was at Tottenham, and he should have passed Podolski when we were 1-0 up. He didn't. He went for the little messy shot, you know. And I love the Ox. Oh my God, the potential's amazing for him. But he does not stop giving the ball away in midfield. That's an issue, and that's why I think he's on the bench. I don't want him on the bench. I'm not saying I agree.
But he played in central midfield that day. He should have played him on the right.
Everyone was screaming for him to play in central midfield, and then they realised he's not really a central midfielder, is he?
Yet.
No, I agree. I don't think that's his position. But the defence looks so bad because you haven't got anything in front of them. You've got Arteta who's about... I'm faster than Arteta. You've got Flamini's everywhere. And you know what? I find it very hard to slag him off because I just love Flamini.
Me too.
But another yellow card today out of the semi. Who else have we got? We've got Cazorla. Not very much.
Kallstrom.
Yeah, he won't bring him on. You know what? This is why I wanted to ask you at the beginning.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you at the beginning, why is he not bringing Gnabry on? I don't understand. Why are we not using him? That was my question to you all.
I don't know. He had one poor game or something like that after a run of good, very good, encouraging games, and he hasn't used him since. I don't understand.
I think Wenger's of the opinion that when we were playing well and we're winning matches, it's kind of the time you can introduce the kids. But when we got backs against the wall, it's a bit more risky. I would have liked to have seen him a lot more, but I think in recent times when we've been struggling, he's always opted for the more experienced players, although they will fucking let us down. So
I get that, Callum, but I was at Palace away and we were terrible. When everyone was going, we're going to hit 6 or 7. I knew. Well, were you there? I was. You know when he brought? I think he brought Gnabry on, didn't he?
Yeah.
Completely changed the game. Yeah. He moved, and we were like, and I was on my own that day, and I remember talking to 2 blokes in front of me who didn't rate Theo, which I couldn't believe. And I just said, you know what? I said, I've come here. I said, all my Twitter feed reckon we're going to win 6-0. I said, I'm telling you, I'd be lucky if we get 1. I said, you must know Arsenal over the years. We do not go to these little grounds and win 6 or 7. It don't happen. It doesn't matter if you're top of the league. We weren't playing well. See, we were getting away with it. We weren't actually playing that great, and we were getting away with it. He brings on Gnabry, changes the game. Mm-hmm. And so when you're saying bringing on the kids, well, bring on Gnabry today.
Oh no, I was kind of. He was injured today when he wasn't on the bench.
Is he injured?
Well, he was unwell anyway. But no, I'm not. All I'm saying is what I think Wenger's thinking is. I don't think it's correct. I think we should have used him because this season, amount of times where we would kind of beat a player, look up, oh, there's Giroud in between 3 defenders, nothing else on, and I really think we should have used Gnabry more, or at the very least, don't play Oxlade-Chamberlain in the middle of the park, play him on the wing, even if that's not where he ends up. When he's in his late 20s. Walcott's out injured. We need someone who's quick and can actually run at players. So either Gnabry or Oxlade-Chamberlain would have sufficed, and neither of them have had enough games. And he's often gone for Rosicky there, who I like Rosicky, but he's a bit too similar to Santi. And all I'm saying is why Wenger might not have played him. Although I think he should have definitely used Gnabry a bit more. And I remember the Palace game. He was a real bright spark, and won us the game at Swansea. And it's a shame really that he's stalled a bit because.
He's been playing well for the under-21s.
How good was he in the FA Cup game against Tottenham? He tore them apart.
Exactly.
The thing is, though, I think the simple reason why I haven't played Gnabry is just because, as good as he is, the Ox has been on better form. The Ox has been absolutely on fire.
He doesn't play the Ox on the right, does he? Really?
No.
Well, I don't know. Unless you want to play both at the same time and take Podolski off, and have them on either wing or something. But they're very similar players. But the Ox has got more experience, although not much more. And he was absolutely blistering a few games ago. So I think it's maybe as simple as that. But going back to what you were saying earlier, going through your list of players, Giles and Amanda, you said, G, that that the only time they made an effort was against Man City, but we played Everton today, and when we beat them 4-1, we still didn't have Walcott, we still didn't have Ozil, we still didn't have Wilshere. Mm-hmm. So, those players being missing, you can only excuse them for so much. I think Walcott is a massive miss for all of the time that he's been out, without a doubt. But it doesn't mean that we're going to lose every game. Why did we beat Everton 4-1? Did they not give a fuck? I don't know. I thought they did. So if we can beat them 4-1 with all these players missing, why can't we beat them 4-1 with all these players missing again? For me, the answer is just the belief is fucked.
Yeah, and we did the same against Liverpool in the FA Cup. But anyway, my other question is, we've lost against. We've gone up to the Northwest. We've lost against Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Stoke, and now Everton. Are we really the Southern softies? Are we just mentally weak? Do we just lose it? Do we just shit ourselves as soon as we get on the M40 or whatever?
The M40 goes to Oxford, but
it goes up to Birmingham as well. I used to take it on my way to university. So it goes to Birmingham, and you get on the M6 after Spaghetti Junction, and then you went
the wrong one. You went the wrong way, mate. Oxford's much better, and you can go past Bucks on the way, which is where I live. So,
we're getting off topic here. Do you think?
No, this is very relevant.
I think we lost those games because we were shit. I think more than anything, I don't think we were shit because we were playing up north. We beat Newcastle, didn't we, away from home? That was about as north as you can get. So,
Does it come back to this DM situation again, maybe? Because when you go up north, on a wet Wednesday, and you've got these little typical Arsenal player, delicate, tricky, small players, the Cazorlas, etc., and the Ozils. Maybe that's when you need this monster in midfield. And we have Arteta, who's not really meant to be there, and now some people would say getting on a bit. We got Flamini, but he's not really, he's good, but he's not exactly world class, and he's picking up yellow cards all the time.
I absolutely agree.
Maybe it's time we get a sort of our version of Yaya Toure, or
we need to get a Bender, one of the Benders.
We need to go back to. He talked about going back to basics today after the game, and I thought, what does that mean to you, Wenger? What is back to basics? What is the basics?
It's just platitudes. It's not talking anything. It's just. Yeah. You've done some of these fucking press conferences.
Basic tippy-tappy football. That's what I mean.
Well, basically try and score a goal and don't concede free. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Jasper. We need some. I remember on the forum there was a time when people said we don't need a defensive midfielder. We need an all-rounder. I think we do. If we're going to persist with this chess formation, we definitely need somebody physical in there. Someone that's going to, scare the shit out of us, or at least stand up to Yaya Toure and Matic and all these players, because we just get bullied. We get bullied. It's so disheartening. It's so disconcerting. Everybody knows how to play against us. Even fucking Charlie Adam tries it on.
No, he's anyway.
I don't think we are bullied. I think that's a bit of a misconception. I think you look at the way we ground out wins toward the end of last season. We were going to all these places away from home and just grinding out wins, real nitty gritty stuff. A throwback to the George Graham days. I don't think we're out for it. I just think we're psychologically we're fragile, especially against the bigger teams or against teams like Stoke who have a good record against us. I don't think we're a bunch of softies. I think we've got enough players in there that can ride a tackle or that can put in a tackle themselves. I think that's a bit of a misconception. Certainly not as fragile as I don't know.
When we was over at the Etihad and I saw what's his name, Yaya Toure in full flow, I saw people bounce.
But he bullies everyone though. I don't know. So,
well, you could argue. I mean, you have a point in some ways, Callum, but you could argue that if we're not softies, why have we got so many bloody players out injured? And also, when we come up against a big physical team like Stoke, we lost. And we came up against a big physical team like Chelsea, we lost.
Easy, but the thing is, we didn't lose to Chelsea because they were more physical than us. We lost to Chelsea.
We did.
No, we didn't.
They put two big fuckers in the centre of midfield and they bullied Santi Cazorla and the others.
But that wasn't. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we were bullied off the ball. What it means was that we were tactically naive. We played someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain in the middle. The reason we lost that game was because we pushed too far up. They sat deep and counter-attacked us really quickly. They won tackles, but we were never. It wasn't to do with it. Maybe they were more physical than us in that game. And it's easy to say we lost to Stoke and then immediately just connect the dots and say they're a physical team. We like to play nice football. That's the reason we lost. I don't think that's the case. I think it's something deeper than that.
I think it's part of the reason. Obviously, tactics played its part in the 6-0 against Chelsea. But let me tell you something. Mourinho put in Matic and Luiz. The guy, the Chelsea guy, was it Frankie, your friend Frankie, Amanda, told us that against Arsenal, he's going to put in two big
tactical than it's not just because they're physical players doesn't mean they bullied us. It just means that they were strong players. It was more.
Did you watch the game though?
Yes, I watched the game.
Apart from us bombing up our fullbacks bombing forward, every time Santi Cazorla got the ball, bang.
But then. So every time we're on about different things here because they. Well, if perhaps he clattered Santi and then from then on Santi was shirking a little bit, didn't want to try and play, Santi takes a big hit. He'll keep trying to play the game. His style of play doesn't change. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking, if the way it used to be maybe 5 years ago, you used to feel if you got into Arsenal's faces, they would then go into their shell a little bit and we couldn't handle it. I think at the moment what they're thinking is if we get in their faces, they're not going to, the physical challenge is not necessarily what we're talking about, but they'll just, we're so shit defensively at the moment, they'll destroy us. I think we're talking about two different things. I don't think
we are. I think our defence is what's kept us in games. And it's only now that it's coming home to roost. We've defended so much in our defence in recent months. It was bound to, the dam was bound to break. We don't have anybody in midfield who can really stand up and grab a game by the scruff of their neck and say, well, this is not happening today. This is definitely not happening today.
Talk about the quality of players then, I think, more so than...
The quality, we've got quality players, but we just don't have physical...
Flamini and Arteta aren't good enough to grab a game by the scruff of the neck the way that Matic or Toure can. It's naive to think that they could. And I know so whatever, he isn't the type of player to do that. I mean, Ramsey's a great footballer, but again, only one man can only do so much. I think we're talking about different things here.
I also have to say that for the first time tonight, I agree with Giles. I do feel that we do get bullied. I know what you are talking slightly different, Callum, about getting a knock and then not coming back from it, but they're at us from the start. We go 1-0 down up north. I mean, Giles and I watched Stoke together at Arsenal. We were atrocious. That was the worst game I think I've seen all season, that we didn't even start. I mean, we could have beaten Stoke. We definitely could have beaten Stoke, but they did bully us. They got in our faces. There was some hard tackles going in. And you know what? We have become a little bit sort of tactically naive with regards to a lot of... the word. Yeah, see, Giles? There we go. Predictable. That is the word. And managers know how to play us. And he doesn't change it. And he doesn't change it. I mean, what do you think we're going to do on Saturday? What do you think they're going to do?
And you know, and on top of that, just get into Giroud's, give him a nudge, give him a kick. He's gone. He's gone for the game. That's it. Forget it.
End, yeah.
He doesn't want to.
I'd rather have Bentner on the pitch. That's how bad it is.
No. By the way, what the fuck has happened to him? Because
basically
one point that I noticed today is that we take off Giroud. Okay, he's tired. Nothing's happening for him. We bring on Sonogo. He gets a chance and he puts it miles wide. And I'm thinking, as much as I hate Bentner, he probably would have at least got that on target.
He's probably in Copenhagen shagging taxis, isn't he?
Basically,
allegedly. He's better than Giroud anyway. He's better than Giroud. He is.
Debatable, but there's not a lot of difference between them. And
I hate Bentner, don't get me wrong, but he's better than Giroud. Honestly,
if Bentner had played as many games as Giroud, he'd be flagging just as much.
I think if he'd have played, that was the problem. He didn't bring him on when he should have done. He never gave him the games. And
the thing with Bentner, like he generally for a while looked like when he scored against Hull on New Year's Day, or Hull, Cardiff. I thought, he might actually become a decent player. And then he decided just to fuck off to Copenhagen.
No, he got injured. He got injured.
No, I know he got injured, but then when he came back, he made, it looked like he was going to, and then he goes off unannounced to back home, acts like a complete twat. And Wenger's basically said, how many chances do you want? You fucked up again. You ain't going to play for Arsenal again.
I agree with that. Callum. I completely agree. But my point about Bentner is this. A few years ago, when he came in for, I think it was Van Persie was injured, or maybe it was Shamak that was went off the ball, he actually, remember, people were saying that there was a run of like 10 or 12 games. He was contributing.
But this is 10 or 12 games, 5 years ago? He's been shit for 3 years now. He's done nothing.
That's because he's obviously fallen out with Wenger. He doesn't want to be at the club. Wenger doesn't want him at the club. He's not trying. He's obviously a man that if he doesn't give a shit, that's what you're going to get out of him. But if you give him a run,
he doesn't deserve those games. Wenger's given him chance after chance, and Wenger's not. He's a patient guy, isn't he, Wenger? He's not exactly going to.
I agree with that.
I don't think Bentner. No, I'd much rather play Sonogo, who might not. They're both pretty fucking awful, but at least Sonogo has some kind of future at this club.
Well, Bentner is just.
I don't want Bentner anywhere near the club.
Yes, Callum, and I agree with you, and we all feel like that. But if we needed him, he should have given him the games to get him fit. What he did in the summer to him was pretty bad. Listen, if you'd have listened to my pod in September, you'd have heard me going absolutely spare about him. Seriously. Sorry, not in September. I gave him a chance. Then when the article came out just before Man United, I went fucking spare about him. I wanted him away from the club. How dare he? So I did change my mind on that. I wanted to give him a chance early on in the very beginning of the season. But you know what? He was supposed to be sold on to Crystal Palace. That never happened.
On deadline day.
And to be fair to him, he ain't got the best representation in the world, and he's a kid. So what Wenger should have done was play him. What he's done now is he's put him to the back, and he's fucked off to Copenhagen doing what he wants to do. He couldn't care less. So no, he's not going to be in the team, and we probably won't see him. But my point is, he is better than Sonogo, and he is better than Giroud. I'm sorry, tactically.
I agree with the former part. The latter, yeah.
All I wanted to say, when I said, where the fuck is Bentner, what I meant was, he's been injured, he's been out, he's not injured anymore, so we've only got 5 games to go, then we can sell him and never see this stupid dickhead again. Just get him in, to win the odd point, to get us a point against, or just score the odd goal.
Bendtner isn't going to win us points on his own.
Callum, if we'd given him 5 or 10 minutes the last few games, and then we'd put him on instead of Sanogo today for the last 15, 20 minutes, he would have buried that chance. There's no.
He wouldn't have made the run. He's too slow.
No.
But Callum,
he's much better than Sanogo. I know you want Sanogo to get games because he's young and you want to build him up. Now is not the time. You don't do it in the run-in. Okay. So the point is that Bentner, in these games where we were desperate to get back into them or get something from the game, even if it's just a point, bring on somebody that's miles better than Sanogo and not far off from the quality of Giroud. That is Bentner. And who cares if he's going to be a dickhead for the last 5 games of the season? Because we're getting shot of him anyway. The deal's probably with some club has already been done. So it's a bit like when Tevez went off to play golf. They still got him back, Man City, and got him on the pitch, even though he deserved to be shot in the face and have his contract cancelled for that. They still managed to get him to win points, even though they hated him and they'd already planned to move him on.
Tevez is a world-class striker.
It doesn't matter. If they score you goals, they score you goals.
No. But look, I'm not just saying we should.
He's not useless.
He scored against who?
He scored against Cardiff, didn't he?
Yeah, the fucking tapping from 3 yards out. He should.
And he played quite well when he came on against Man City over at the Etihad as well.
Yeah, when we were 16. But look, I'm not. All I'm saying is, look, at the beginning of the season, right? When he played against West Brom in the Cup, I was happy to see him in. I thought, give him another chance, right? Scores the goal against Cardiff, absolutely brilliant. Injury was unlucky, right? Of course, you can't blame him for that. But then, he comes back and. To go, he keeps talking about he kept talking about how he turned a corner, how he was taking his career seriously, and you know what? It's not good enough. You can't go away. And the thing is, Carlos Tevez is a world-class striker at City. They brought him back because they needed that world-class striker. For me, Bentner is slow. He can't do anything that Giroud can't. The problem is that the fact we're even talking about whether it's Sanogo or Bentner who are second choice, because they're both pretty awful. And I don't care about Sanogo's development as such. I just don't think realistically that Bentner would have brought anything to the game, because at the moment, the way we're playing, unless we've got a Luis Suarez up front or someone who can create something out of nothing, our strikers are impotent. The only way Bentner's going to score is if
a finish. That's all. Just brings a finish. I'm not saying
he's not a great finisher. He can score the odd header, but he can score the odd. That's
better than what Giroud worries more about his hair than his header, doesn't he?
Callum, I think what we're trying to say is, I don't think any of us are disagreeing with you, but we're talking about the here and now, and that's what we've got. And I think he should be playing. That's the issue. I don't want him anywhere near the club. I don't even want him putting on an Arsenal shirt from May onwards.
Exactly.
And I agree with you on that. But my point is this. He's better than what we've got. He's better than Sanogo. I don't care about Sanogo at the moment. He's coming on, he's trying. He's not good enough. He's not what we need at the moment. But the point that we're even, as we said, discussing the fact that we've got Bentner or Sanogo on the bench is where the problem lies, But for me, bring him back, give him some game time. I mean, there's not much left now. I swear to you, in my opinion, he's better than Giroud at the moment, definitely. But he's not going to play him.
And I don't think. Look, we're obviously not going to agree on this. I just think that for what he potentially brings to the club. Maybe he brings
movement. He doesn't flag. He don't fall on the bloody floor.
Yeah,
he gives his all, Callum. Yeah. I'm not being funny. Giving his all.
He gives his all, but he spends his time away from the club being a twat.
We know
that.
But I'm not arguing about that. And I agree with you. And I think
he doesn't deserve to ever pull on the shirt again.
Yeah, but then don't cut your nose. Don't cut your nose to spite your face. Because I agree with you.
I just don't think we're losing anything by not playing him. I
think we are.
We are if we have to take off Giroud after he's had a poor game and bring on Sanogo for the last 20 minutes.
I think Sanogo offers a little bit more. I don't think. I
can't say that. Sanogo is a kid. He's got no Premier League experience, right? Bentner, as much as we hate him, as much as he's the biggest dickhead on the planet, doesn't deserve to wear the shirt. He would have buried that chance today against Everton.
People always say this. They say this about Podolski every time Giroud misses a chance. Oh, Podolski would have buried that. Podolski missed that chance against City. He missed a couple of chances today. You can't just say a Bentner would have buried that. You were saying your argument hinges on the fact that Bentner would have buried that chance.
Just saying,
to be fair, Sanogo had the ball in the net legitimately as well, but it was wrongly called off for offside. Yeah. So he can put the ball in the back of the net. If the
I didn't say he couldn't. I just said he's a better player, and we should for the sake of a few weeks just forget how much of a cock he is and get him on the pitch in the last 20 minutes of games to finish chances, because he's more likely to finish them than Sanogo is. I'm not saying Sanogo's crap. He's got all little flashes of potential going on there, but Bentner's more experienced. He's played in the Premier League a million times. Just get him on to finish a few games, score a few winning goals, or getting us points and then tell him to fuck off to Mars. It doesn't matter after that.
We said this at the beginning of the season, and for a period, he said to you, look, it's your last chance. You don't want to be here. We didn't really want to have you, but come on, let's try and make it work. And for a while, it looked like he was doing it. Then he decided that he didn't want to do it anymore, and he fucked off. And I completely agree with Wenger on this. I don't think he should have been brought back. I don't think he should be brought back. I don't think he offers anywhere near as much as you're making him out to be.
Well,
you're talking about him winning points here and there. Fuck off, Woody. The thing is, the way we're playing at the moment, we're not.
This is the most animated and angry. This is the most animated and angry I've ever heard, Callum.
I just think the way we're playing right now, right? Unless Bentner had the ability to beat 2 or 3 players on his own and do something that actually create something out of nothing, he would be just as impotent as Giroud is right now. I just think the way we're playing, our style of play at the moment.
We're not comparing him to Giroud, we're comparing him to Sanogo. You're not listening to me. Look, it doesn't matter. Look, you're coming from a moral point of view. You're saying he come back from his injury and then he fucks off and behaved like a dickhead in Copenhagen. We all agree with you, but that you don't sacrifice the points on the board because of your moral belief. Otherwise, why the fuck would Liverpool put up with Suarez, who's a diving, biting, cheating racist? They put up with him because he scores goals. Okay, I'm not comparing Bentner to Suarez, but I'm talking about. No, I'm not comparing Bentner to Suarez. I'm talking about, what do you care about as a fan? That someone scored a goal, or that a diving, biting, cheating racist scored a goal? It doesn't matter. He scored a goal. That's the whole point. So if Bentner goes away and sticks his cock up an exhaust pipe in Copenhagen, it doesn't matter to me, as long as he comes back and scores a goal. I'm not going to go, you never put the shirt on again, because in a few weeks he will never put the shirt on again. It's for now, just get the points, and then we can make a fucking burning effigy of him in the middle of a stadium if we want to. But don't get all high and mighty now when we're about to finish 7th in the fucking league.
But no, we're not going to finish fucking 7th. Come on. But I'm not making this. I'm not making this big moral debate and saying, like, because if we're making a big moral debate, I wouldn't have been saying 6 months ago that I was glad that he's actually making the effort. Because a lot of people said he should never have played again last summer, because he drink driving and all this stuff. You know, he'd done loads of bad shit before, and I was happy for him to stay and play and contribute. But all I think is, at this point of the season, when you've given him chance after chance, and I don't want to play like that in the dressing. It can't be a good thing to have. Where we're really disagreeing here is the impact he would bring. I don't think he would do fuck all. I don't think he's that. Maybe he is a little bit better than Sanogo, but for me, I just think the way we're playing at the moment, Bentner would make. His impact would be negligible. He wouldn't win us points on his own.
People are putting balls through, aren't they? And Sanogo finished one beautifully, and he fluffed another one. And my opinion is that, you know, Bentner would have finished one of those. That's all. I'm not saying he's our saviour. I'm not saying he's a million times better. The fact that we're even talking about 2 fairly crap players is embarrassing. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, he's fucked us over a million times and deserves to be shot. But the point is, at the end of the day, we just need points on the board, and it doesn't matter if Arsene Wenger's grandmother scores them, as long as they're on the board, you know.
I think we're not gonna get Callum to agree with us. I think that's the bottom line on that subject.
For the record, Callum, I agree with you morally.
Morally, me too. But
I'm not making it into a moral debate. I'm not saying that anyone who does everything wrong shouldn't play for Arsenal. It's not about that. It's literally a guy who's just done it over and over and over and over again. He isn't a good guy to have around the club. He had a chance and he fucked it up.
Yeah, but Callum, don't you think loads of players do it that we just don't hear about?
Not to the extent that.
But you don't know that, and I'm not defending him. And I'll tell you something, I'm with you on it. I don't even remember wanting to set foot in the club again. But as Jasper says, we need to get the ball in the goal. And unfortunately, Giroud can't do that at the moment. He just can't. I mean, today, where was he? I mean, even the commentator made a remark, and he wasn't even being sarcastic. He went, Giroud's a bit slow. I laughed. So I said, yeah, and, you know, this is just how normally he plays. But this is not anti-Giroud. and it's not pro Bentner. I'm not either,
No.
to be honest. No. It's pro Arsenal. It's what's best for us at the moment. And I think we're arguing on different points. I don't have any moral ground. Listen, you can't have moral ground if you had Tony Adams in your team. You can't have any moral ground. Yeah. It's not about that.
Tony Adams loved the club, though. Bentner couldn't give a shit.
Because of the way he's been treated as well. I mean, remember, he's a kid as well. He's a kid as well. And he didn't have 27. The way he was treated. Callum, listen, I'm no Bentner fan, and don't go away thinking I am. God, if you listen to me on our pod, you'd know that by now. But
it's ingrained in my head now, that's what you are.
I know, I'm not. I promise you, I can't wait for him to go. And, you know, we've not even meant... But what we're trying to say is it's just...
No, I get what
now.
you're saying.
Yeah.
I defended him against Mo, Giles, and if you remember, back in October, whatever. Mo said he never wanted to see him play for us again, and I was saying, let's make the best out of a bad situation. But I just think it's got to the point now where it's like, how many chances do you give a guy who clearly couldn't give less of a shit about the club?
But if he's going to... Okay, so...
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm going to say, because if he was going to score 5 goals on Saturday, you couldn't care less what morals he had.
I don't think... If he was Luis Suarez, I would happily... He could do whatever he wants.
Why?
Because Luis Suarez is fucking brilliant. And
yeah, okay, so that's what I'm saying to you. It's not a moral thing then, is it?
Well, I'm not... I said it's a moral thing. I've said there's certain points you get to. You guys keep saying that I'm making a purely moral argument. It's not that. We know you're not. I just don't think Bentner would have brought much to the table. And I think if we were playing better, we had more players, he could have put a few goals in. But we're just not. At the moment, our strike is impotent because we've got no runners next to him, so it's pointless.
Okay. All right, no worries. All right, let's leave that one now. Let's go on to.
Who would have thought Bentner would have been the most?
I'm just surprised that you got so irate.
It's just like, I'm done with football. Like seriously, this season has really just broken me. Like I'm just.
Yeah, today.
But that's the thing. It's not even this day. It's been the last month or two. Because at this point now, I'm a broken man. Like you can keep me when I'm down, but like I'm already. I don't know when I snapped. I think it was the 10 minutes into the Liverpool game, and I just couldn't believe it. I think that was the angriest I've ever been. Chelsea, I was pissed off, but then it soon subsided into like, oh, how bad we are. Today was like a grim acceptance, but it's got to the point now where I'm just like, I just can't wait for the season to end. Like I'm so fucking.
It's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
I can't wait for the World Cup. I'm just
Someone else said that.
Yeah. All right. So come on, Saturday. Let's cheer up now. Let's try and get some positivity going. Saturday, we've got Wigan Championship Club. You know, admittedly they're the FA Cup holders, but they don't have Roberto Martinez anymore. So we've got a chance, haven't we? We've got a decent chance of getting to the final.
The plucky underdogs could overturn the holding champions.
Knowing our recent record at Wembley, I mean, you know, we've got a chance, haven't we, guys?
Yeah, we have. But the thing is, every time I thought, all right, this is the new low. This is it. This can go as the low point of the season. Next week we just end up doing ourselves. So this would be the best, or maybe we'll save the ultimate low for the final when we lose to Sheffield United. So we might win it. But no, in all seriousness, I think we'll be all right. Actually, no, I don't even know anymore. I really don't know.
The problem is, sorry, I was going to say the problem is the belief. Because, again, on paper, we're a much better team than Wigan. And even with all those world-class players out and injured, we're still a much better team than Wigan. And, you know, in a Carling Cup, if it's a Carling Cup match, we could probably put out our kids and beat Wigan. But the point is that we're going to put out the same team that we played today, and their belief is shot. That's the problem.
Hopefully Ramsey's going to start next week with any luck, ahead of in place of Flamini with any luck.
He's only got a week to get back to full fitness. So
he's going to have to. He's going to have to because we've got no choice really.
I want him and Koolstrom in the middle.
Okay.
I think, sorry.
Let's not start another argument.
No, I wasn't going to argue. I was never expecting to hear it.
No, sorry, I was just thinking this earlier. I think Ramsey and Koolstrom would be better than Ramsey and Arteta at this point. I think Arteta needs a break.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, he probably played a lot of games. It's not a bad shout, but yeah, I mean, I said this a few podcasts ago, but you know, this game and the next 2 FA Cup games are actually very closely connected to the whole Wenger in-out argument for me. Because irrespective of what's happened to the league, doesn't matter what's happened to the league, if he can't mastermind beating these 2 championship teams and winning a trophy, then I'm sorry, you've lost the plot. You've either lost the dressing room or you're not good enough to be at the club. So for me, his head rests on these 2 games. You know, unless he gets the tactics spot on and the players fuck it up and score an own goal, and it's totally their fault. I think you've got to ask some serious questions with the 2 teams that we've got in front of us.
Amanda.
What do you want me to say, Giles? What do you want me to say?
Give us some positive. You said you're going to be positive towards the end of the podcast, so here's your chance.
I've got to do another one tomorrow night. God. No, I can't say anything about Saturday. I'm just looking forward to going to Wembley. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what he's going to... I don't know. I mean, Ramsey... I want him on the pitch, but I don't, you know, for his benefit, for his, you know, he's got to be given some time to get match fit, and he ain't got the time. We ain't got nothing up front. I could probably score more than Giroud. So, I don't know. I really don't know. It is the end of our season Saturday night, isn't it, really? When you look at it, I mean, I'm not being dramatic, but if we do not beat Wigan... Actually, I have to say, I think if we don't beat Wigan, I think you'll be seeing some headlines Sunday morning. I think he'll be gone, to be honest.
Would you think he'd walk?
I think so. I think so. I don't know how we can come back from it, because we could even be 5th by then, couldn't we? I don't know.
Yeah,
5th and out of the FA Cup, and 4th is not in your own hands. Although they do have City, I think, to play, and United, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, they do. Both at home.
Southampton away as well.
You know, so we could we could end up 4th with the FA Cup. So that's what I'm trying to focus on at the moment. But I'm a little bit like Callum. I sort of go into each game quite positive. My dad is a Wenger out, and
D&G you called him, didn't you?
I call him D&G, not for Dolce and Gabbana, for doom and gloom. He's even told me tonight he's thinking about his season ticket next year after 60 years of going. I said, yes, Dad, whatever. He don't even want to go Saturday now. It's like, you know, and minute we went 1-0 down today, he's on the phone. But positivity about Saturday, well, we can't be any worse, I suppose, and I think we'll go for it. And I don't think we can play any worse. What, than today? We can play any worse?
Yeah. Well, we have played worse this season than we did today, and today was pretty shit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, all right, Stoke. It could be Stoke all over again, but it's not at Stoke. It's at Wembley with possibly around 55 to 60,000 Arsenal fans by the sounds of it.
True. Yeah.
And I think that's going to make a little bit of a difference. Wigan are going to have a little section, 20? I don't know, maybe they've got to come in, 15, 20,000. We're going to make the place because it's going to be like an away game. And I love going to the away games much better than the home. So I think the noise will be us, and I think we will be the 12th man. And anyone that's listening to this pod, you know, we are all down. Absolutely. I'm finding it really hard to say anything positive tonight. But we have to go to Wembley believing and keeping the faith, which is my little hashtag. We do, because we're Arsenal, and the tradition of our club is that we do fuck up all the fucking time. And then we go to Anfield in 89 and beat Liverpool 2-0. So we just have to have that belief, you know?
And hopefully everybody that goes down there, I don't want to see those flags. Apparently there's rumours of some flags coming out, some very...
if I see one of those, Giles, you know I'm going to do, don't you? Yeah, there won't be any flags. They won't let them in anyway, so...
Good. Well, good. So Saturday we're going to win. I mean, even the outcome of the Sheffield United and Hull City game, we've got to win that, because Hull City haven't even got their 2 strikers that they bought in January. So, you know, FA Cup, it's got to be in the bag, innit? It's got to be in the bag.
Joel,
it's got to be. We should. No, I'm just saying. I don't want to count chickens, but look at it. But look at it. Look at it, Jasper. Come on.
February 2011. Carling Cup, Birmingham, they're shit.
Yeah. Do you remember Wimbledon playing Liverpool? They were.
Yeah, that was a one-off. That was, you know.
Okay,
yeah. You know, come on.
No.
It's a test of the mental strength. You know? We have to pick ourselves up after some shit results in the past few weeks, and we have to go out on the pitch and actually look at each other. The players have to look at each other and think, yeah, we are better than this team, and we're going to turn on the fucking style. We're going to turn out to 11. You know.
I can imagine saying this. That's what's making me laugh. We're going to turn on the fucking style.
Yeah, we've got to let Bould and the senior players, you know, G up these boys, and go out there and do the job.
Our problem at the moment is in attack, isn't it? Because even if we can have let's assume that they have a crap defence, right? let's pretend they have a crap defence, right? Who's going to score? Giroud's not on form. Sonogo's still learning the game. Cazorla scored a few goals recently. Ramsey scored loads, but he's not on form. Don't say Bentner. So, Podolski, the only person I can think of is Podolski, unless we're going to get a Mertesacker header. So we've got to cut them to shreds and finish. That's the point.
Giroud is kind of a kind of a flat trap bully. Yeah, he's a flat trap bully. He should be able to put some of it.
He scored 2 against Brighton in the cup, didn't he, last year?
Yeah, or something like that. So he's always against the small time.
It's gotten to the point, Giles, so my answer to everything now should just be who knows, because I can't call anything at this point.
Which Arsenal would turn up? It's that old question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably the shit one, but I think the shit one might just be enough to beat Wigan.
Yeah, it should be. There's no excuse.
You said the bag, Giles, isn't it? That's what you said.
Yes, well, it should be. Come on. On paper. You look keep saying tonight, the buzzword I've heard tonight, but from all three of you at one point or another is on paper. So on paper, we should win.
Why don't we just put a lot of paper out on the pitch?
Yeah.
And we'll win.
Have them play on paper. All right, so final subject. I'm going to ask you all individually. Wenger in or Wenger out? I'll start with you.
No.
What?
No.
No. I just want a quick answer because Amanda.
It's not our podcast.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. On your podcast, you banned.
Yeah.
But on this podcast, it's not. So not Wenger in or Wenger out. Do you? Yeah, Wenger in or Wenger out. Yeah. And Amanda, I'll start with you.
I'm not answering. I'm not interested in Wenger in or Wenger out. I'm just interested in playing the next game. Can you ask me that middle of May? Yeah? I'll come back on in the middle of May.
All right.
Okay.
Jasper.
Oh, God. I can never answer this question yes or no, especially in the last couple of years, because I keep changing my mind. But it totally depends on what happens at the end of the season. If fourth in a trophy, I'd say no. But if we then go fourth in a trophy and he spends £10 million in the summer, then I'd change back to yes, get him out. So it really depends. This is crunch time. We keep saying, the fans keep saying, oh, let's just give him one more year. Let's just see what he does in the summer transfer window. Because the reason we say that is because if we're ever going to win a trophy, we want to win it under him before he goes, so he can say his goodbyes. So that's why people keep saying that. But I want to see if we do win a trophy, and I want to see if we do spend money. If we don't spend money, I don't care what we've won, he can bugger off.
But when will he bugger off? He can't. But Amanda said this the other day, and I pulled her up on your podcast, Amanda. You said something about if he goes through the summer, he doesn't buy anybody. September 2nd. Well, what kind of? How can you do that? The new man coming can't buy a new player or anything. He's stuck with what he's got.
Don't care.
So either you say your thank yous and goodbyes at the end of May, bring somebody else in, or you give him a new contract and you grin and bear it. You suck it up.
Well, surely, you make a good point, but surely he knows who he wants now, right? And he knows whether he can afford it or not now. He knows what his war chest is. If they haven't given him enough money, or if the negotiators are going to fuck it up again, or whatever, then tough titty. And if somebody has to come in and manage us, at the last minute, then so what? The important thing is the long-term view, isn't it?
Okay, Callum.
I think I'm the closest to Wenger out I've been for
ever.
Well, probably ever, yeah. Even when we were losing 8-2 to Man United, I don't think I was this bad. But I think that the most important thing to remember is that I think it's decided in his head, and only he will decide whether he stays or goes. We can all say, oh no, give him, keep him in or get rid of him, but the board ain't going to sack him.
Nope.
The contract is there for him if he wants it, and it will just come down to him, and it could be. All these people saying Wenger out. He could already have made his mind up and said, I'm going to leave. And Amanda, what you said about him, if we lost the FA Cup, him walking, I don't think after 17 years he'd leave with 4 games of the season to go. But if we did lose it, and he would come out and say, I am going to leave at the end of the season, and I'm going to play the last few games. I mean, a bit like Fergie, he had a few games for, he announced he was leaving, and then he had a couple more matches left. I don't know. The only thing about this question is so much of it, for me, hinges on what will happen in the future. And I'm finding it really difficult to differentiate between whether or not I really think he will make the necessary changes or whether or not I just hope he will and he won't. I mean, all these Wenger out people keep telling me, you're an idiot if you believe that he's going to change or if anything. But this is something about the fact that we do seem to have this is meant to be the summer where the financial shackles are off because we've got the new Puma deal, the new TV deal, and all this stuff. So it would be a real shame if we really do have more money, because none of us really know for sure how much money we've had to spend in the last few years, and how much. And it seems that we've got a lot more now. So this could be the summer that he goes and spends, because in his eyes it's the first time we've had the money. And if that's true, then it would be a real shame to see him leave after this horrible period we've had, where we've had to be, a period of austerity, and it would be a real shame if all this hard work he did to keep us in the champion. I don't even know what I'm talking about now. If I'm really being fair if I'm being too easy on him. I don't know. All I will say is that I'm not nailed on either way. I don't know. Wait and see.
It's not a yes or no question at this moment in time, is it?
It can't be. It just is too bloody complicated. And I've always not liked this whole AKB versus the Wenger out brigade, whatever. It just seems like the situation changes so often that you need to look at it consistently, and rather than just putting, saying I am this and I will stick to this, because then you see people who make silly excuses like, well, who could we get as a lot of people who defend Wenger say, who are we going to get to replace him? And that's not a good enough excuse. And some people will always say Wenger out regardless of how well we're doing. So there needs to be just discussion, and people need to be more through the middle. But it's a really interesting time, and this is the first time in a long time I've actually felt that he might actually leave. I think there's definitely something up. His mind's not made up, and only he knows for sure. I don't think even the board knows. So.
Yeah, you started by saying that about 20 minutes ago. Only he knows.
All right, Giles, mate. Do you want a bit of alone time? Talk to yourself again. That's what the listeners want.
Someone slagged him off on YouTube for that, though. Did you see that?
I know, yeah, I saw that.
Who's this fucking twat talking to himself for ages? What is this bollocks?
I always like the comment about the theme music every week as well.
Yeah, everyone comments on every week.
Shitty country music.
And some people say it's total shit, and then other people go, it's awesome, I love it. It's like, this is one extreme or the other.
When I listened to it, I thought Giles was having a moment. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
he was wearing a dress and red lipstick at the time.
Wine as well.
High heels,
yeah, a glass of wine in hand. All right, guys, it's been a very interesting podcast. I knew this would run well over an hour. Always is when we come on straight after a game. But I want to thank special guest Amanda for coming on at short notice.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
No worries. I knew you would have a few things to get off your chest and, impart some very good opinions as well.
Oh, thank you.
I thank Callum for coming on as well. Thank you very much, Callum. And this is the most irate I've ever heard you, man.
I need to lie down.
Yeah, I felt the passion.
It's taken it out of me.
And Jasper as well. For once, Jasper, you were outsworn by Amanda.
No, it's been a pleasure being outsworn. I love it when she talks dirty to me as well.
No, we're not allowed to swear on our pod, and I don't really swear in the real world much.
Who says you're not allowed?
We don't. We've got like a family. I don't know. We just don't swear. Yeah, we just don't swear, and if we do, it's beeped. So it's very unusual for me to swear, but most pods I'm invited onto, they make me swear.
And in the pub before the game, she swears even more. That's enough.
I think the beep machine will be well and truly worn out on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's wrap it up. Guys, it's been great having you on. Let's head into the week. Hopefully this time next weekend, we'll be looking at a Wembley Cup final. She Warrior with him. All right, so that's been Giles, Callum, Jasper, and special guest Amanda. And this has been the Gooner Ramble, an Arsenal Fan TV podcast. Thank you and goodbye.
1, 2, 2, 2.